ensure that she sleeps above water.
Wow. Yeah, I wish I would have seen the end of that Dine and Dash scene, because that's, that Limp Bizkit they wrote the song for the movie, Turn It Up.
Well, and just as she's starting to Dine and Dash, just as she's getting up to go, a waiter walks past with a tray of water, and she almost runs into it. And
she took out her knee.
Tense.
Remember that knee snap?
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, so Limp Bizkit, they're like, when you're mad, when you're sad, eat some fish, it'll make you glad. That's the song lyrics. They wrote it specifically for that scene. And then chew it up, and then turn it up.
So talking about Swimfan not being up for Best Picture, how was that not up for Best Song? Limp Bizkit should have an Oscar.
Yeah. I mean, it was 2002. I think it was ahead of its time. Yeah.
The world wasn't ready for Limp Bizkit to have an Oscar. But now their day has come.
Yeah, I think the critical turn is starting to happen, I would say, towards this film.
My Limp Bizkit knowledge is very, very slim. I cannot continue down this road.
Now, I'm very happy about this ending you talked about with Renee, Christopher, Amy, and Randy.
Yeah.
Like, they seem like a nice group.
They do. They don't need Ben.
If I was in high school, I'd want to get in with that group.
I think you could, Mark. I think you have it in you. You could replace Ben.
Because Chris, he likes to read. He's chill. Renee, she just hangs out. She seems nice.
Oh, she's got her camera. She's clearly into film.
And she'll put her life on the line for you.
Yeah.
Like, she'll drop, and then, Amy's cool. She can get free seafood. And then Randy's just a nice kid. Non-threatening.
He's the school's best swimmer now.
Yeah. And wait, I had another thing I wanted to talk about in this movie, but I just forgot. Oh, what was it? Oh, Ben got framed for hurting Amy because the car ran over her. But Ben could just say, I was hours away.
Yeah, there is this nurse I was talking to at this hospital. She is an alibi. Also, there's probably CCTV here.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
These are not good cops.
Also, there's Madison's cousin, Christopher. He took me here.
Yep. He was waiting. I signed in.
Yes, I was breaking and entering into someone's house. I'll admit that. I didn't attempt murder.
Yeah, and then also the cops wanted to talk to him about Josh's death, but he had an alibi for that as well because wasn't he with Amy? And Amy was like, "You need to leave."
But that only is sticks if she survives being run off the road by Madison.
Yeah, it's true.
She's tying up the loose ends. She's Final Destination 2ing this thing.
Oh man, this cast this would have been interesting. I like these actors. Imagine if a Final Destination situation happens during Swimfan.
I can see that. I mean, Josh is basically the guy who dies in the swimming pool in Final Destination 4.
He gets his butt sucked out of him.
Final Destination.
Yeah. Randy's the nice kid who gets blown up at the very end. Amy lives. Madison gets...
Yeah, Amy's the hero.
Amy, what happens to Amy? Pool? Lightning in a rainstorm?
Yeah.
A tub falls on her.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
In the Final Destination.
I mean, Madison has to drown. It has to be water-based. She might have the Todd death in the shower because she slips on the water.
Oh, wait, how about this? There's a full tub, right? It somehow falls upside down and lands on her, trapping her with the water. So she has this tub that's stuck in the ground. No one can pull it off while she's in the water. I
like it. Or it could be like the tanning beds, where she gets trapped in it somehow and there's not enough air. There's that film where people get trapped in a swimming pool overnight, over a weekend. It's that kind of a situation, but there's no air at all.
Yeah, Ben gets trucked probably, right? Hit by something.
I see him having the guy in the first guy in Final Destination 2 who has the ladder go through his eye.
Oh yeah,
that one of my favorite scenes in any film.
And then Death is just like, "You're too nice, Amy, and you have to deal with all these people."
She's the one who has the visions.
Oh,
so she's trying to save these people. She saves Renee. Renee gets out. Everyone else, and she saves Christopher, but everyone else, unfortunately, we even lose Randy. We don't want him, but we lose Randy. Randy's the Sean William Scott of this one. He just go like, "Stay away from me," and gets his head cut off.
Aw.
I mean, it's sad to see him go, but that's these films. That's what happens.
Can Christopher get smushed by a glass plane?
Yeah, and Dan Hedaya, he needs to go as well. Whether he gets
catapult.
Yes, of course.
He's at a Ren fair. He's at a Ren fair, right? And he's yelling at Ben about getting his swim time up. And he steps onto a trebuchet that fires at the same time. And it just jettisons him like 200 yards away.
Get your time up! Down, wouldn't it? Get your time down, get your speed up. There we go.
Yeah, get your time down! Oh, man.
It's a little whitey coaty top.
Then you hear a
Yeah, because he got flung a long way, but then also off a cliff.
Wait.
So he goes across and then down.
He lands on Renee's car, and then she runs into a logging truck.
Oh dear. No,
That's a coincidence.
I don't need more logging trucks in these films. It's bad enough driving behind it. I don't want a moped now, but it's kind of terrifying driving behind a logging truck. Even it's easier for me to wind away from the falling logs than it would be in a car. But still, I've seen that cop get smushed by the logs. I don't want that to happen to anyone nearby. Least of all me. Oh.
All right. So, final thought about this movie.
It's not great. It's kind of predictable.
Wait, you thought that she would actually drown at the end?
No, but I thought, predictable in terms of broad strokes. I didn't actually think that Ben and Amy would stay together. I kind of hoped they wouldn't, because as we've determined, she's better than him and she can do better than him, and Randy's right there.
She looks so sad at the end.
Yes, because she's stuck with Ben's for some reason.
Oh.
But yeah, it's kind of an unsatisfying ending for that point. Erika Christensen, I think, is good. She's acting wise, she's a pretty creepy villain.
Yeah, no one's bad in this. Like, the actors are good in this movie.
Yeah.
We know that kid can act.
I could have done with just a bit more character for some of them. Particularly Amy, or maybe more from Ben's mum.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, there was a deleted scene with Ben's mom where she was kind of flirting with her son, and she's like kind of jealous that he's with Amy.
Well, I'm glad they cut that.
Yeah.
That would have been awkward.
Yeah, it's a little creepy. All right.
So what are your thoughts? Are you a Swimfan fan?
I mean, I definitely feel like I blew it up too much in my head. Now, I got to tell you though. All right, it's 84 minutes long, 79 minutes.
It is not too long. I'll give it that.
Also, it made me very happy seeing James DeBello in that, as someone just who likes all those movies. I mean, Erika Christensen's not bad, and I'm telling you, when I was watching, I'm like, this is crap, man. He's terrible. So it made me feel something. So I've watched movies where I've felt nothing. Does that make sense? Where you just watch it and you're like, oh gosh, like I have nothing to say about this film.
Yeah.
But I watched this and I was like, what? How'd they do that? So from, my brain, man, there's enough in there to make it an interesting watch for me. I'm happy I own it. I'm happy that John Lasseter sent me. I now own it. But I don't know, man.
I'm happy I didn't pay for it.
It's not. It has enough there to not make it bland. Was it bland for you watching it?
It wasn't. I was captivated throughout. I wasn't ever bored.
Yeah.
It's not around long enough to bore me. So there's that, I suppose.
I guess, yeah, it's a ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
I want that on the DVD cover. It wasn't on long enough. No, I mean, if a teenager wants to watch it, I'd recommend it. Why not? It just...
Yeah, there's almost nudity in it. There's a makeout scene in a pool.
And when she later, I still can't believe she just drowns. Like, it's the weirdest death for a villain ever.
Like, she can't swim, and he'd rather save his girlfriend than the person trying to kill his girlfriend. Yeah, that makes sense.
She just drowned.
He is in no way conflicted about which way to go in this. He doesn't look up at all. He's just ignored what's happening. It's only once Amy is fine and breathing that they both kind of stand up and think, oh, Madison's dead. Okay, moving on.
Shuri Appleby, her stunt double couldn't do that pool thing. She freaked out too much. So she did most of those underwater scenes.
Wait, an actor just doesn't think a stunt double wouldn't. That's impressive.
Yeah, and then I'm happy though, that Appleby, because I was like, I hope she did well, because she was in Roswell. She moved on to Unreal, that really popular TV show. And so she's been working steadily the whole time. And I guess she had a guest turn on Girls that people hated. I never watched the show.
Yeah, I'd never watched Girls. But sorry, I just want to say, they had sex in a pretty public pool.
Yeah.
And then the next day when he's swimming in it, he keeps on having flashbacks to it. My initial thought was not that he's like feeling guilty, but that he's disgusted that he's now swimming in the water he had sex in.
Yeah, you're right.
Because, talk about my research of going swimming. I got ill from doing that. My wife and I both went swimming. The next day, both had horrendous colds. They lasted for like 2 weeks.
You suffer for the MFF podcast, man.
I do. You have no idea.
And that's why you got a spot for life, so it's good.
Well, Daylight is the next one in the Soggy Saga. It's gonna happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, how about I'll watch it, and then we can maybe see if we want to do that for the new series, or either way, it'll be covered on the podcast.
We'll cover it, because I
and also,
for some reason, love that film.
If we had never ever watched this movie, we wouldn't have had the sushi eating talk.
No,
we wouldn't have been able to stick up for Amy.
Hey, Mark, I will always be grateful for any film that I watch that gets me to talk about it on the MFF podcast.
And the Trebuchet. That was gold.
And the Trebuchet.
I think you've said some funny stuff, man, but I think that was top 3 right there.
Well, let's stop it there before we ruin it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, well, hey, thanks for coming on, man. This was Hey, well, this was fun. Thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, so for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, and for Jay Cluett, this is Movies, Films, and Flicks. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
So that was our discussion on Swimfan. A couple of notes. Mark and I mentioned we should cover Daylight, a film I adore, as part of the Soggy Saga. We never actually did cover Daylight, but I did record an episode of Why This Film podcast with friend of the show, Emily Slade, where we talked about Daylight as a film that I loved as a youth, and I would thoroughly recommend listening to that episode. That's Why This Film podcast with Emily Slade, episode on Daylight. Great time. And listening back to this episode, I remembered nothing about Swimfan. I knew that I'd seen it, but I didn't remember a single element of the plot, who was in it, anything at all, before I re-listened to that, to today's episode. It was a film that just kind of disappeared from my brain. But hey, I did watch it, and I've watched it again. So, how is Swimfan like Deep Blue Sea? Well, this might be the least Deep Blue Sea adjacent film that has been covered on Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. Unsurprisingly, I think there's not a lot of no, it's only really the swimming, isn't it? So a very short list this time. So the lead is a good swimmer, Carter, good swimmer. There is a not quite there romance with a female character who is a poorer swimmer, who has an ulterior motive, who dies in the end. At one point, Ben swims into a dead body, just as Carter kind of swims into Jim's head. And in the bar where Amy works, there is a tank behind the bar, and it's got a shark in it. Shark in the tank. You know, there's scenes where people dive into the pool, there's swimming scenes, etc. But for the most part, this isn't a very Deep Blue Sea adjacent film. And I think we all knew that, didn't we? If we're honest with ourselves. But finally, how deep and how blue is this film? Is Swimfan? Well, it's not very deep. The entirety of the film is spent essentially on land, with a little bit of time spent swimming on the surface of the water. Very, very small amount of time spent swimming like underwater. So this is on average 0.86 meters, or just under 3 feet up in the air. So yeah, not deep. But for a film that is almost entirely on land, very blue. It works out being just shy of 40% blue, which is bluer than both Deep Blue Sea and Deep Blue Sea 2. Not quite as blue as Deep Blue Sea 3. And this is because, firstly, all of the swimming scenes are 100% blue, but a lot of the scenes just have this blue tint to them. There's like a blue light, a blue filter, I'm not sure. But especially all the scenes in the swimming pool, but lots of nighttime scenes in the hospital. The scene where Madison is kind of stalking around the hospital waiting for Amy's room. There's all just got this kind of blue tint to it. And there's lots of little blue elements, like there's blue walls in Ben's room. Madison's notebook is blue. His Ben's scrub